Superstars. I think superstars is something that Georgia lacked this past season in 2024. They had them from that back-to-back national championship run. They had them in 2023. But it felt like Georgia lacked superstar. Not that they lacked superstar talent, but people that truly played like a superstar. I want to talk about guys that I think have superstar potential on this upcoming 2025 Georgia Bulldog team. Because look, if they want to get back to winning national championships, I think they need players like this to step up and have a serious impact. One of the obvious ones is Nate Fraser, true freshman running back for Georgia this past season. Look, to me, the kid is electric, and he showed that day one. He showed that Clemson game, that opening game in Atlanta. He had a 40-yard run where he's scampering around. He's making people miss. He's juking. He showed the speed, the electricity. Another thing he showed that day, and he straight up told me down in New Orleans, is how much he loves being a Georgia Bulldog. Something you saw. He scored a touchdown in that game. He ends up doing a celebration where he's paying tribute. He's paying tribute to the Georgia Bulldog running backs of past, Sony Michel, Ty Gurley, and all that, doing that prayer bow celebration. You saw how much he loved being a Georgia Bulldog when you saw the Gator Chomp celebration down, and I'm not going to show that. This is an image of him in that Chick-fil-A kickoff, that opening, I think the Aflac kickoff game at the beginning of the season. I think that Nate Fraser electric. He's going to have the backfield to him, not to himself, but Trevor Etienne's not going to be around. He's not going to take a ton of carries from him anymore. This is Nate Fraser's backfield. He is going to be the lead horse in this thing. He's the most talented guy in the backfield. He needs help. He needs Cash Jones in there to supplement during receiving downs. He needs Branson Robinson and Roderick Robinson to come in there and be a hammer, because that's not necessarily what he is. Fraser is a little bit more finesse. I think that we'll see Fraser take a step forward as he kind of becomes a true lead running back. Was Georgia's leading rusher, right? He had, I think, 11 more carries, 133 carries, about 620-ish yards. He had 8 touchdowns on the ground. He made an impact as a true freshman, and I think we will see him take a step up in his sophomore season, especially since he's just going to get more work. Is a 1,000-yard season incoming for Nate Fraser? I think that there is a good chance. He's just clearly Georgia's best running back. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post talking about some superstars. I liked starting out talking about Nate Fraser, but there's some other guys on this team that I think have the potential, and I think if Georgia, like I said, wants to win the national championship, they just need some of these players to step up and be some of the best players in college football. That's what it felt like Georgia was missing in 2024. Guys that you pointed and said, I mean, yes, they had Jalen Walker, they had Malachi Starks, they had Michael Williams. Kind of inconsistent performances out of everyone and inconsistent performances out of the team, but it takes a lot of talent, and I think that a few guys stepping up can change Georgia football's team. I don't know about program. This is, Georgia's program is elite already, but if you want to get back to winning more trophies, I just think that some of these guys got to be the best players in college football. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball. KJ Bolden, another true freshman from last season. This will be his sophomore season upcoming. He's Georgia's leading returning tackler when you talk about out of the secondary. All right, 59 tackles for KJ Bolden as a true freshman. He had an interception in one of those games in Athens, had a sack. He showed that he can make an impact everywhere. And like Nate Fraser in that game against Clemson to kick off Georgia's season, he was playing immediately. And he was playing early and often. He was in there on a lot of different packages. KJ Bolden has an opportunity to become Georgia's best secondary player. I'm going to talk about someone else in that room here later on, but Bolden, he's a bona fide 5-star guy out of Buford, Georgia. He has the speed, he has the instincts, and he's under Kirby's wing. And he was a huge get for Georgia, a huge last-second get for Georgia in that 2024 signing class. They flip him from Florida State at the last second. He becomes a Georgia Bulldog, decides to stay an hour away from home in Athens. And look, Malachi Starks is gone. Dan Jackson will be gone. They are going to rely on KJ Bolden more this next season, just because he will be the most talented guy they have in that safety room. And they'll have to figure out who the other guys in that safety room are going to be. But KJ Bolden, I think that he showed some electricity his freshman year. He showed that he had those instincts and that speed. He's going to be recognized as one of the best safeties in college football this coming season. That's my take. I don't think that that's a hot take either. Is he Caleb Downs? Probably not. And Caleb Downs obviously formerly of Alabama, now at Ohio State, is one of those guys that's going to be a can't-miss prospect when it comes to the NFL in a year or two, and he's all over the field. I'm not saying that KJ Bolden could be quite that good, but he's got the talent and the skills to make a serious impact. Georgia's had a lot of really good safeties over the last under Kirby Smart. Javon Bullard, Malachi Starks, obviously, Dan Jackson, Christopher Smith, Lewis Seen, Richard LeCount, Dominic Sanders. These guys made huge impacts. KJ Bolden is as good as any of them. All right, none of them are quite as athletic as Malachi Starks, and that's kind of the difference between Malachi Starks. They're all different, but you could tell me that KJ Bolden's the fastest, and I'm not going to bat an eye on that. Let's stick with the defensive side of the ball for now. I'm jumping around a little bit, keeping this all over the place, but CJ Allen. All right, this will be year 3 for him where he's a junior, where he's making an impact, where he is one of Georgia's middle linebackers. Well, now this is him. He is the leader in this linebacker room now. Smile Munden is out. He's going to the NFL. Obviously, he kind of took Javon Dumas Johnson's spot. He was on his way to taking it before Dumas Johnson ended up getting hurt in 2023. But now CJ Allen will be the most experienced interior linebacker that Georgia has. That guy at that mic spot, the guy that is the signal caller on the defense side of the ball. It's CJ Allen. He is instinctual. He is athletic. He is strong. He is Georgia's leading returning tackler for this coming season. He had 76 last year. That was one short of Malachi Starks. And look, Georgia's, again, has a long line of very talented linebackers. And to me, it's now CJ Allen's turn to be that guy. Now, I am cool with saying that any of those guys are going to be really good middle linebackers. I think that that's one of Georgia's, in terms of raw talent, Georgia's linebacker room is one of the best, right? Between CJ Allen, Raylan Wilson, Chris Cole, Justin Williams. They just have a ton of guys that can be really special. The reason I point to CJ Allen is the experience, is the pedigree. He's been doing it more in certain instances. I think that maybe he doesn't have necessarily the highest ceiling out of the linebackers, but he's already made a huge impact, and I expect him to have more than 76 tackles next season. I expect him to be a Butkus contender. That's just what happens with these Georgia linebackers. He's going to have a lot of production. He's going to be in a lot of big moments. He's going to be going up against a lot of great teams, and he's going to be tasked with doing a lot for Georgia. Raylan Wilson will play a lot. Chris Cole will play a lot. I think Justin Williams, former 5-star, will be playing a lot as well. But it's CJ Allen that has the most experience, and you see a lot of the time with Georgia how that can really matter. And you saw how Nakobe Dean progressed over his 3 years in Athens. You saw how Roquan Smith progressed over his 3 years in Athens. I'm kind of looking at that trajectory and saying, can CJ Allen do that too? That's my question. Let's jump back to offense. Transfer portal guy, Zachariah Branch, okay? I think Nate Fraser is the most obvious guy that says, hey, this is a guy that's going to step up for Georgia's offense. He's going to take a step forward. He's going to be a star. They went out and they got Zachariah Branch. This was a huge get for them in the transfer portal. He's the former number 1 overall receiver and a former 5-star prospect from that 2023 high school signing class. He was the most sought-after wide receiver in the transfer portal, and Georgia landed him. They recognized a problem at wide receiver. He's explosive. The counting stats aren't as impressive as you'd think they would be over the course of his 2 years. 320 yards in that first season where Caleb Williams, the Heisman Trophy winner, was his quarterback that season. And then in 2024, Caleb Williams won the Heisman in 22. My bad. That's a lie. Jaden Daniels won that year. But you get my point. He had a Heisman-talented quarterback throwing to him. He was kind of a gadget player. Can Georgia turn him into a lead receiver? He had 503 yards with Miller Moss as his quarterback this past season at USC. The production went there, but the touchdowns aren't really there. He's an electric return guy. Georgia needs people like him, and I expect him to have a bigger role at Georgia. And to me, it's a mistake if he doesn't. That's the way I feel about Zachariah Branch. I told you I was going to talk about another guy in the secondary, and this is kind of a blend of, look, this is year 4. This will be year 4 for Dalen Everett. This will be year 3 for him as the starter. This will be year 2 for him as Georgia's number 1 corner, as the top corner on this defense. He was really, really, really good in huge moments, specifically against Texas twice. Two interceptions against Quinn Ewers in that second game, in that championship game against Texas. Had a forced fumble, and I'll pull up an image of that right now, where he sacked Ewers. He forces the fumble. He causes a turnover. Georgia scores off the turnover. He was a big reason why Georgia beat Texas twice. And those were two of the biggest games. And honestly, the two biggest wins for Georgia in the season were at Texas and then against Texas in the SEC championship. Dalen Everett made an impact. He is a guy that has improved each season. It's been noticeable, and now he's coming back. He was a huge get in terms of convincing someone to stay, having someone return to Georgia. I thought that this was a big win for Kirby when Dalen Everett decided to return to the Georgia Bulldogs. He could have went to the draft. He could have got drafted. I'm telling you that right now. Long arms, instinctual corner. Kamari Lassiter stepped up. Keely Ringo stepped up. These guys continue to step up. Dalen Everett is returning for a fourth year. Those guys didn't stay for a fourth year. I think that he could be really good, and I think it's very important. Who would make the biggest impact as a superstar, though, if they became a star? Is the answer obvious? What if Gunnar Stockton's a star? People like to compare him to Baker Mayfield. That's a lofty comparison. Baker Mayfield's one of the greatest college football quarterbacks of all time and obviously leading NFL teams to the playoffs. But Stockton showed grit. I think he showed his talent. To me, I'm posing this one more as a question than cementing him as a potential superstar this season. But if Stockton becomes a star and Georgia needs a star at quarterback, I think that Stetson was, and he was a good complement to the talent around him. Can Stockton do that? Can Stockton take a step forward if he is named the starter in this offseason? He does win this job. Will they use his running ability? Will his quarterbacking skills show out? We know he's a high school football legend. Can he turn into a college football legend like quarterbacks in the past have for Georgia? That would be the biggest difference maker in terms of how do you elevate this Georgia team. The quarterback becoming a superstar would change it the most. That's my question. Will it be Stockton? I think the other guys have a really good shot. If Stockton holds off Puglisi, keeps this job, and is the starting quarterback for Georgia, will he lead them to championships? He helped them in the second half against Texas. Can he do it again?